This is Making Better Decisions. I'm your host, Ryan Sullivan. Decisions are where rubber meets the road for organizations. Each week, we'll be learning from people who are on the front lines of turning raw data into better outcomes for their organizations. This show is sponsored by Canopy Analytic, helping companies make better decisions using data. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Making Better Decisions podcast. Today's guest got a bachelor's in marketing from University of Oklahoma, has built decades of experience in marketing, category management, and then into pure analytics. Over her career, she has held the roles of VP of Media Analytics at Nielsen and first moved into the C-suite as Chief Analytics Officer at Tracy Locke. Please welcome Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Fortune 500 company Omnicom Commerce, Michelle Tisdale. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
I am super, super excited to have you. So let's jump right in. I want to get as much out of your brain as I can today. What is one thing you wish more people knew about using data to make better decisions?
Oh, you're gonna kick it right in, aren't you? The one thing, let's see. I think the one thing that I would share from my perspective is that it's complicated, right? I think a lot of times people kind of come in, they're like, if I just had that one data point, then like I can make like the most insightful and most positive outcome decision on this thing. And I think that it's just not that simple. I think that for a lot of decision making, it's hard to figure out what data do I need. And I think it really depends on the decision that you're trying to make. Because what happens a lot of times, people default to the data that they think that they know, that they're more comfortable with, or that they're biased to help them, right? Because everybody's got an agenda. And then really also just thinking about like, who do I need to participate in this decision, right? Because I'm going to look at that data one way and somebody else might come in and look at that data another way. So when I think about holistic, like what you need to know about making better decisions is that it's not just about the data in and of itself, but it's also about how you look at it and bringing sort of like the data and the humanity point together. And so really at the end of the day, it's complicated in what you're trying to do. So yeah, every day.
Yeah,
You're
I
balancing that, you know?
I absolutely love that answer. There are so many themes and kind of directions to take that. I think the one that I want to dig into first with you is it's difficult. I think you're right. I think, having been in the analytics space for a little bit now, you see a lot of marketing messages around the space, right? And it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of this just like, oh, it's going to be easy. It's just going to be, it's going to rain money. And it's kind of like, I
We
don't
all know
know.
that's not true. That doesn't happen.
Yeah,
We wish for
exactly.
it, right? But like, yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I think one of the things that I have found is that it is very much a journey. So no matter where somebody is, right? I have some information that I presumably look at it even a little bit.
Yeah.
I go in, I ask this set of questions, and we see something and it's kind of like, "Oh, why did that happen?" And then you dig into that and you're like,
It's the
"Okay,
rabbit hole, Ryan. It's the proverbial rabbit hole. We all have it happen to us, right? I was working on a project recently and you start going down the rabbit hole and you start picking up new pieces of information and having new thoughts. And then the next thing you know, you look up and you're like, where am I now? And what was the original decision I was trying to make? What was the original thing I was trying to do? Because I have gone so far left, right?
yeah,
that I can't even get back to center. So yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but like in that journey of like, what are the pieces that I need that are going to help me answer that next question? But you still need to be mindful of like, what's the most impactful piece of what I'm trying to do? Like, is this going to add to what I'm trying to deliver? And for
mm,
us in advertising, right, it's about delivering outcomes for our clients. So I need data that's going to help me either convert a sale or have a new insight or whatever. And not to be, going off in left field, being like, oh, did you know X, Y, and J? So
yeah."
yeah, it's about being sort of purposeful about your data journey, about like kind of where you want to go and what you're trying to get to, I think. So
I love that, and in fact, that's kinda almost the opposite direction of where I was going, so I
oh,
wanna
sorry.
No, that's a great thing, right? So, what I wanna do is I wanna talk to you a little bit about that balancing it, right? So on the one hand, it's like, okay, well, we want to stay relentlessly focused on the actual impact, like improving decisions, answering the specific questions that are asked to us. Like in theory, like business leaders have gotten into those positions by kind of knowing the right questions and being
Yeah.
good. So like we want to answer those questions. They're
Yeah.
important. On the other hand, when I think about what I view as the ideal role for an analytics professional, it's really not complete to say, okay, well, we're just question answerers. We're kind of ticket punchers. You ask us the question, we give you the thing to answer your question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is the balance between, as an analytics professional, using our expertise to say, hey, you asked this, here's the answer to this, but here's the next question. This is something interesting.
Yeah.
How do you balance that between kind of staying on focus and answering the questions that are asked?
Oh, so good. It's it's it varies, right? There are
Mm,
some where I'm staying on course, and then where I'm balanced as I think partly because of my own inherent curiosity. Like
mm,
I want to know. It may not even be a person, but I start digging. Like I'm just curious, and I wonder if I just found out this, would it help me answer or this project, or I could apply it to another project or another decision that I'm trying to make. So I think for me, it's inherently staying curious about the next thing, and I want to be proactive, right? And what I'm able to bring to the organization. So, um, yeah, I feel like sometimes it's kind of like analytic meets creative meets just curiosity and all the things. Yeah. So
I love that. I don't think you can be an analytics person. We don't find ourselves in these places without being inherently curious.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, one of the other things that you mentioned when we were starting was, well, actually, there were a couple points, and they all centered around the idea of intersection of humans and data.
Yeah.
So, one of the first points that you made, to steal kind of a trite phrase from the business world, is what gets measured gets
No,
managed.
I hear that all the time. Everybody does, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as someone that has the opportunity not only to kind of answer questions, but really drive analytics within an organization, what are some recommendations that you have for people to break out of that rut? What are the types of questions they can answer? What are the new things that they can look at so that they're not just kind of managing what's easy to manage?
Yeah. I think that comes back to I think for a lot of what I do, it's a like it budget. How much are we spending and what are we doing and how are we manage that? But I feel like a lot of times it's the value that we bring, right? Especially in my organization. It's like, how do we think about that? And the inherent value, right? So whether that's in hard numbers, right, which everybody is going to measure, but also the value that we bring and sort of the insight that we bring and the thinking and the creativity and the insight to help drive that creativity, right? Those are things that are sometimes the intangibles that you can't exactly measure that per se in pure like black and white necessarily. So I think for me, it's really about um, getting people engaged, helping them think about data and analytics in a different perspective, and really helping to disseminate the work and the insights and just being for me getting excited about what we do. Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are excited. And I just want everyone to know that data isn't scary, and so just thinking about how can we help create a culture of curiosity around the space of data, insights, analytics, all the things, to really increase the culture and the value around what we do and how it applies to the business.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found most effective in this space, oh, and gosh, I'm going to sound like such a nerd here,
Oh,
but
here we go.
it is kind of the fun side of
There's fun in
data.
data. What?
And
Come on,
exactly,
someone's
right,
lying
and
to you.
yeah, and in particular in visualization, I'm fairly certain that I've told the story on the podcast once before, but really briefly, I was working with a sales leader, and they were trying to do something to really kind of incentivize the team. And one of the things that works really, really well with sales folks is a scoreboard. They
Oh
love
yeah.
scoreboards.
Competition is, oh,
Exactly,
yes.
exactly. So kind of bringing some of that game theory stuff in. And in the early days of Power BI, I mean, I guess it still exists, but like in the early days of Power BI, like the visualizations uh, were kind of still getting hammered out. And so one of the visualizations that somebody had thought that it was funny to make was an aquarium visualization.
Okay.
So whatever you were visualizing, instead of like a bar chart, they would be fish of different sizes swimming around in the aquarium.
All right.
Yeah, which it was really funny. So like if any of the numbers went negative, the fish would flip over and float to the
I
top.
love that. That is fantastic.
Yeah. So it was really funny, and like each fish had its own color. So we built a scoreboard
That's awesome.
where, like, based on current month sales, each sales rep would get a different size fish in the aquarium, and we just put it like one visualization on a
Yeah.
page on the screen in the
Yeah.
bullpen. And they said sales went crazy right
I
after
can
we
see
did
that.
this, right? So like there's fun stuff. There's also, like, as you mentioned, to kind of, again, being in such a high level leadership role, you have the opportunity to kind of craft a bit of data culture and show
Oh,
people how to curate that curiosity. My personal thing is kind of passion projects, like whether it's like a hobby or, personal fitness or finance or anything like that. What
yeah.
are some of the recommendations for other data leaders who are out there to try and curate some of that curiosity on their team?
Oh gosh. So I think it's around letting people, to your point, kind of follow their passion projects, right? I think about my team, right? So I love that I've got a gentleman, Armand, and his team. They do a lot of the data visualization, and they love it, and they've created some amazing things. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, you guys go and you run with it, and it's been amazing. I've got a research person. She's like, oh, we've got these newsletters, we've got these things we want to do, and it's like, create it, name it, go to town and all the things that you want to do. And then we have marketing science as well. And they are creating some amazing things and helping us understand Gen AI, and just helping us become smarter about some of the new technology and stuff. So
Mm,
I really would be like, what is it that makes you excited, right? And really helping to fuel those passion projects and to be able to facilitate that. So what do you need, right? Do you need some data? Do you need some software? Do you need something, what do you need from us to help fuel that? Because I think, again, by fueling that curiosity and then allowing them to have the freedom and the opportunity to do some of that, just really helps integrate them into the organization, helps get them excited. And we, I think, accelerate the innovation and the work that we do. And again, we start sharing that with broader in the organization, and you find other folks in other disciplines that are also interested in some of these things. And it just, again, it just fuels a culture of integration and I don't know. It just it helps people just really feel more aligned to the organization and what they're doing. And so I say, if there's any way you can help fuel passion projects, get them excited, try to figure out new projects that the company needs, and just really start ideating right around what we could do, either individually or together. I think that's a great way, to start that.
yeah, I I love that. It's really about, seeing as how we're still kind of under the heading of the intersection of humanity and
Yeah,
data and all this stuff. It really just comes back to, whether it's a person that I'm creating a report for, or whether
yeah,
it's as a leader trying to kind of inspire the people on the team. It's really about knowing that specific person, kind of
yeah.
listening to them and knowing them and finding out what gets them excited, and
Yeah.
then giving them kind of runway in front of that to
Oh,
run
absolutely.
and
Absolutely. You
build
get
with
the
that.
runway. And I literally am always impressed. And I learned something new. I feel like all the time, I'm like, that is so freaking cool. Yes, let's go and run with it. What's the
Yeah.
next thing? And so again, we're jazzed and our clients are jazzed. We become, disruptors in the industry. And so that's what we're trying to do, right? At the end of the day, we're trying to, keep ourselves excited, bring something new and interesting to our clients, to the industry and what we're doing, and ultimately for us, right? Sell more products for our clients.
Yeah.
So Yeah. So all that kind of goes hand in hand, happy people, right? Do happy work. So
Yeah. So you brought up kind of like how much exciting, cool new stuff is happening in marketing. And so, owning my own company, I have the opportunity, responsibility to kind of wear a lot of hats. So it's no longer just, Ryan's and the cave building stuff or
Mhm.
talking to clients about building stuff. Now, I'm having to learn how can I reach out and communicate what we do to other people and what's the best way to talk about that. And there are
Yeah.
all sorts of really interesting tools, which I didn't realize, but actually kind of really appeal to that kind of data analyst, curious nerd nature that I have. So, in my opinion, and this is like a relatively unqualified opinion,
Okay.
the marketing space is one of the most exciting places with cool new stuff hitting the market every single day. And there's a lot of crazy, new regulations, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's, the pixel changes, that make email tracking harder or GDPR, all these things, but then all these other cool new tools and automations. Marketing is such a changing landscape. Talk to me a little bit about how you rise to the challenge of staying on top of such a shifting landscape with so many kind of good and regulatory things happening.
Yeah. It's not easy. And by all means, right? It's not just me. So there's no way one person can stay on top of all the things. And considering all
Mm,
the different verticals that you just mentioned there, of spaces of change that's happening so quickly.
mm,
So the great thing is that we actually have some committees that are really able to sit down and go do deep dives into some of those. So I sit on a committee for innovation, right? And we every month we get together and we start thinking about what's happening in the space. And again, this is across a variety of different types of agencies. And we start understanding like what's happening with Gen AI, what's happening here, what are some of the things we can do. Where should we be thinking and 3 to 5 years out that's going to change our business? And so how do we start to get ahead of that? And what are some of the disruptors and some of the innovation we should be doing? But it's really about we have a way in which we work together to kind of like what's the latest thing, and we're sharing out. And we are all the time. Did you see this? Did you hear about this? I think half of my day is literally spent like with the vendors, like hearing the latest, right? What's the latest and greatest? And so I want to make sure that we are never beholden to a single provider or anything like that, but that we are on the forefront of the things that are going to change and continue to move us forward. And so again, within the entire holding company, we have a variety of different groups that help to do that. But yes, there's tech, there's innovation, there's regulation and legal and all that stuff that we are constantly, working together to try to figure out like what's happening so that we are in the forefront and we're how did that stop? Like when cookies were going away, we were making sure that we were cookie proofing, our solution for what we were doing with Omni. You got to be thinking 3 to 5 years out and like what are those
mm.
changes going to be and how that's going to affect the business overall. So yeah, but it's a constant. Everything's so fast and changing. And like I said, there's so many competitors coming in and doing all that it's just that could be a full-time job just to try to figure out like, all of that. But again, working collectively within the organization, we stay on top of that. So, but
Yeah.
again, it's complicated, right? It's complicated. It's never easy, right? Everyone's like, you just get your one brief in the morning and you read through it like that. Yeah, okay. I wish it was quite that easy, but it never is.
Yeah. Yeah. Business is hard.
It's hard.
Business is
Hard.
hard. Although honestly, you know, to me, that's kind of one of the fun things about it. Like it as like a nerd and former kind of aspiring academic and all that stuff, like the thing that I love about actually, being in the business world is it is an endless runway to learn.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Every day, every
Yeah.
day. It's the runway to learn. It's the runway to get exposure to just different things going on. I mean, I can come in here and we're talking about TikTok. I mean, like, I don't know. It's literally never the same day twice. And I just get inspired by the conversations that I hear in the office. by the things that we're doing, the clients that we have, the projects that we're working on. I mean, that honestly jazzes me every day. I'm happy. I love coming into work
Yeah.
because it's like, we're working on something for Zoa or we're working on, this, that, and the other. It's never the same day twice. And just the type of work that I get to be a part of and that my team's a part of it's really cool, I think, and
Yeah.
again, I'm a fellow nerd. I geek out about this stuff. I want other people to get excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun.
I think you said my mantra there, right? Never the same day twice,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
so much fun to get to show up and like figure out a new problem, try
Hmm.
to solve something, try to get to learn something cool and
Yeah,
new.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of which, you've mentioned a couple times Gen AI.
I,
Now,
I, I,
yeah, I mean,
I
I
I
think
would be remiss if this conversation didn't talk about it, right? I swear I've
exactly.
been to so many conferences lately. It's the number one thing. Yeah. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Jenna, what you got?
So obviously, I think, you know, there have been a couple episodes we've gone like really nitty gritty into like how some of these things work and some of the technologies that underlie it. And a lot of that is like really cool information. I think right now, the biggest thing that I hear from the marketplace is everybody is like, wow, you know, I see the power,
Hmm.
but exactly how and where that kind of meets the road and generates a change is something that's changing every day,
Yes,
whether
it
it's
is.
kind of a new tool or somebody has a new idea or
Yes.
it's a technological advancement.
Yeah.
So obviously I would have to imagine that some of the like really specific, probably like best ways that you guys are using that right now. I mean, that's how you make a living, right? You're selling that to your clients. So don't feel like you got to say all that, out here on the pod. But what I'm wondering is if you have any kind of recommendations or ways that you're thinking about how to stay on top of this stuff. Like, how can somebody learn what is out there, right? Kind of combining that conversation we just had
Yeah.
where they can find the ways that they can use it for their organization.
Yeah. I would say first and foremost, get yourself an AI expert. We have one, we have several. But specifically within our group, we have a woman who is brilliant in this space and has continued to educate and train and assist us in helping again from the most 101 user to the more advanced to help understand what that looks like and how to apply it. And it's just been a wealth for us. And so continue to help us think differently. Again, what was a stat that I heard from Forrester recently that 60% of the global workforce has been trained on Gen AI, right? And so I was like, what, are you serious? Yeah, so it's coming. But you really do need an advocate for your organization and then
Mm,
figure out how to work that. So whether that's a pilot, whether you're building your own, but really being able to figure out because it is coming, you need to get ahead of it and think about that again. And it's not just within my remit. Like this goes across all of the roles that we have within our organization, from finance to project management to whatever. That we're seeing the value, and we have someone to help us kind of walk through. I dare say spoon feed us, but really think how we can apply this in a practical way, and then also push that boundaries of how do we actually start to be much more innovative and disruptive again, and what we're building and how we're using the technology to further our capabilities.
yeah. I
It's
I
super
love the
secret, Ryan. It's super secret.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think the specifics, it's a little bit like, okay, asking like a great chef that has a secret recipe.
Right. Like I'm gonna just go home and still be able to make it. Probably not.
Yeah, but it's also like I think it's super different, okay, you're a great chef, you know, how should I think about cooking is very different than
Mhm.
like what's that one ingredient you won't tell anybody, you know?
Right.
And the thing that I loved about your response was the tangibility of it. I think I always kind of have this conversation around if we think about Gen AI like we think about any other major advancement in the business world, we don't think that every single person at the organization should be able to do every single job. Like taking somebody whose, primary skill set is building great relationships and like doing great sales, and then being like, "Hey, so we want you to code us a Python package." And it's like, okay, so
Yeah,
you're
that's right.
super tangible advice here of just like invest in finding somebody, whether it's fractional contract,
Yeah,
someone full-time hire,
yeah,
get someone whose expertise is in this space
yes,
and they're staying up on it.
yes,
And that's how you can figure out the
yes.
value. One of the big things that I tried to recommend to people in this space. So I do want to be clear, like my primary area of expertise is much more in data infrastructure, visualization, reporting, but my background is in math. I know how to code. I have built neural nets and all of these, fun machine learning algorithms. I can do all that stuff. And so, if I'm engaged in a project with someone, lots of times they're like, "We want to do AI." And I'm like,
What does
"Okay.
that what
Yeah,
does that mean to
exactly."
you?
Kind of like, it's like, "We're going to do computers." It's like, okay,
Okay.
well, what? And so
Yeah,
the biggest thing that I find is same as any other advancement. What are the things that are hard? What are our pain points?
right,
And then
right.
try to collaborate with that expert, find out, okay, there might be a solution to this one. Let's
Yeah,
do that one use case at a time.
yeah, yeah. And that is exactly what we've done. Like, what are the hard things? Um, and what are sort of the softer things of what we want to do? And so again, just prioritizing that and just really figuring out where we're going to get the most value out of what we're trying to do. And it's been great. Like there's been a lot of great learnings that we've had and successes in that. So yeah, we're excited to continue on that journey, right? Like everybody else is, and figure out how we can continue to leverage, um, Gen AI and all the things it has to offer. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. If you'll allow me,
Oh goodness.
I want to have a little back in the day buffet. So,
Okay.
over the course of your career, you did some category management work,
I
which
did.
for long-term listeners of the podcast, we had Sean Egan from Boston Beer come on. He was a category manager. I have gotten to do some work with honestly a couple like rooms full of category managers. So it's something that is a really, in my personal opinion, unique and tangible way of thinking about business. It's like very brass tacks. Since that's been a part of your history, I wanted to dig in. Yeah, selfishly, I just like happen to be interested in
Oh
this
my
topic.
gosh.
Tell me a little bit. What is category management to you, and what is the role of analytics in that space?
Oh gosh. I feel like it's changed so much because like I don't even know if they still call it category management these days.
Yeah.
But because I feel like it's now like business intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how it's going. It's just like business performance sort of thing. Because back in the day, I mean, it really was okay. Let's look at toilet paper and what's happening with toilet paper and who's winning in toilet paper. And it was like, yay, right? And so we're just trying to figure out how do you sell more toilet paper.
Mm.
And I think now it's like this business performance, and there's like we got to bring on again we got to bring all this different sets of data together. So it's not just about the POS data that we were looking at before and understanding was it on feature or display, but it's like, what were the impressions and like what's our retail media spend on this? I mean, it's changed so much
Yeah.
to like really become this whole again, I would say more like business performance and like how does this fit in the realm of all these other things? And so um yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally some of the same components are still there, but I feel like even just saying it, it seems like it really is all
Yeah.
because we don't
Yeah.
call it anymore. I mean, I like we don't call it that anymore. I mean, it's like you don't call them brokers anymore. I used to work for a broker, and that's like passe too. But like, um, yeah, I feel like it's now again marketing intelligence and
Yeah.
business intelligence sort of thing, and so it just changes like how we're looking at this and figuring out now like I think it was really around understand how to just kind of like keep your brand on track, right? Not get delisted sort of thing. And I think now that there's so much more about looking at growth pathways and looking at it adjacencies, and how do you start looking at the scale, and like there's so many more different ways in which people are buying. So it just becomes like it's just a bigger ecosystem, right, of category management now than it was just like, what are we selling at Kroger today, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just become, again, I'm going to go back to complicated.
Yeah.
There's so much more. And whether it's more data that we have now, again, cut back when I was doing it, right? Like pretty old school. But yeah, so I think now, kind of fast forwarded almost 2025, it's just, um, I think it's more fun, to be honest, as well. I think it's more interesting,
Mm.
now than I think it was before as well. So
Yeah, I love your share on that. I think one of the thing that you said, oh, this is really just kind of analytics, right? Like you can call it BI, you can call it market intelligence, whatever it is. The thing that I personally find so interesting about it is it's almost like a subsection of kind of the overall analytics umbrella. And it had, out of all of the kind of like little fields of analytics that exist, to me, one of the most laser focused perspectives on business impact. Obviously, this is everybody's goal. If you talk to anybody in the analytics space, it's all about like, okay, well, I can build you fancy stuff.
right,
Nothing moves the needle unless it moves the needle.
that's right.
Every category manager that I worked with or I talked about, like you even mentioned it, right? Like, what are we going to do today to like not get delisted, right? Like the stakes are so high and they were
Yeah,
so focused on like
yeah,
tangible business impact
yeah,
that I feel like it's, for an analytics professional, just like an absolute trial by fire. And the people that make it through category management are some of the most rock solid analysts that I've met.
yeah. I mean, I look, coming from it, I'm not gonna disagree with you on that, but I think again, it goes back to having that strong fundamental, like, understanding of, like, again, that day in and day out, like, how do I look at this and how do I figure out how to move that needle, right? And
Mm,
and even now we talk about it, as those hard KPIs, those hard metrics, sales, share, like, and that's at the end of the day, like, that's what I'm getting measured on, and that's what I want to try and improve. And so any way possible that I can get in there and figure out all this stuff, right? As what people try to do. So if you can survive through category management and get in there and like figure this
yeah.
shit out, right? Then I mean, that's the school, that's the foundation that you want to kind of get through. And I think if you can do that, I mean, yeah, come on my team. I'll take you, right? Because
Yeah.
you've been through the war and you've figured it out. And so yeah, like I love it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree that, it is a place where the strongest analysts shine,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely the gauntlet
Not
in
that the other ones aren't great, because
oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, right? Like
but
this
again,
is
like, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, this is just kind of one area of many that I've worked in and there are exceptionally talented individuals both
Yeah.
in centralized analytics functions and very frequently outside of
Yeah.
those centralized analytics functions, which actually kind of brings up a question for me. So obviously being the grand poobah
Oh,
of
gee.
analytics,
I love it.
I am curious. There are obviously very talented analytics professionals that are outside of your standard data and analytics umbrella.
Yeah.
How do you find those people? How do you curate those people? How do you best interact with them? How do you get them to be a part of the data culture, even though they're outside your org?
Oh, I love this question a lot. I'm trying to think about this. Um, I think one is I feel like I'm super open, right? I don't say
Mm,
this is my circle, and because you aren't formally a part of this group, that you can't participate. So
yeah.
like I am always like, oh, you're interested? You like these things? And so I will grab and hold on to and then help facilitate that exchange for sure. And then, I'm part of like here in Chicago, I'm on like Chicago this, Chicago data analytics that, and I'm out, finding all the people and kind of just looking around. I'm on LinkedIn as everybody else is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think and also honestly, it's also about my team. Also, they'll engage with someone and they're like, "Hey, you should talk to so and so. You should talk to so and so." But yeah, we're always on the hunt for good talent, or we see something and we're like, kind of, hey, did you see or did you hear? So, again, it's really about keeping your ear to the ground, and whether it's inside the agency, outside the agency, in our particular role or not. But I mean, I'm not precious whether you grew up in this space or not. But if you
Yeah.
have, again, it goes back to different passion and interest, like those take you so far, right? So yeah, we're an open book over here. And we welcome anyone from across the organization. If you have an interest, you want to come sit, you want to like learn something, come on, we'll take it. So
I
yeah.
love that. I have a funny story in this space. So my first job out of school, I worked for a phone company and I found myself in like a fledgling, startup kind of analytics unit within this company. And what was kind of cool about it was that they called us shadow IT
Oh,
because we were technically under the finance organization. I had come from financial planning and analytics, and they realized that there was this need for kind of like really specific financial analysis and all this stuff. So we had like a group of people on the IT side of the house, and then we had the group of us on the finance side of the house. And we built this database and blah blah blah. We did all this stuff. So the way that I would ferret out all of the people within the organization that kind of had the data gene was we had shared this database with the finance org, and I would just go on and see whose queries were bogging down the server. I was like, where are the curious people? Because like we'd see it and people would be upset. They're like, they're slowing our server down. I'm like,
no,
no,
but
no,
like,
no,
what are they
those are my
doing?
people.
Yeah, what are they
That's
doing?
right. They're the ones who are digging in and finding that stuff out. So, they might have like a big query that was locking everything up. So I'd like have to, kill their query so that everybody else could get in. And then I'd call them up and I'd be like, hey, what
What
are
were
you
you
doing?
trying to do? What were you trying
Yeah.
to do? Yeah.
Tell me, I'm excited,
Oh my
and
gosh,
so
that's hilarious.
we got the opportunity, right? Like in some cases, like that could be like a contentious, like, oh, you're locked up the server, right? And it
No,
was just like, no, 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 like you're in there,
stay
you're
curious.
curious, what are you doing? And we got to like build like kind of a center of excellence, a team with all
Love
of
it.
these folks
Mhm.
and train them and be like, here's how you do it without
Yes,
locking up the
yes.
server.
Yeah,
Here's it. Hey, did you know we have this? What about this technology? And it just got to build this culture of these kind of curious people from all across the
that's exactly right.
organization. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we do here too. That's great. That's funny.
I love it. So, Michelle, we've talked a ton today about
We sure have.
how how much the human element matters. So, I would be remiss if I didn't give you the opportunity to get to share with everything. If I didn't give the opportunity to everyone to hear a little bit more about you as a human. So, tell us when you're not working, what do you like to do? What are you passionate about? What do you do for fun?
So I think a couple of good things. And one will be in fashion, and with my day job, I love to bake. So again, very methodical. That I am a huge home baker, and it's my happy place, right? I love a good recipe.
I
And then
thought you were going to talk about fashion because you
I
look
am
super
fashion
cool.
is the other one.
Yeah.
I am a wannabe fashionista, right? Yeah. Yes. My dream one day is to be at the Met Ball, sit next to Ann Wintour, do the whole thing. We're gonna be besties. But yeah, it's absolutely fashion. I was at the Chicago Fashion Week, did some runway shows a couple weeks ago, which was amazing. But yes, if it wasn't this, if data wasn't my world,
Yeah.
yeah, I would figure out how to be working at Vogue and doing some fashion stuff and just living the dream there. But yeah, I mean, here in Chicago, loving the weather, me and my Great Dane, running around,
I love it. I love
Ella
it.
Fitzgerald. So just,
Wait,
spending
your
time.
dog's name is Ella Fitzgerald?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is incredible. I absolutely adore that. Apparently, you also have good taste in music.
Yeah, well, Oh, that's the other thing. I go to live music shows, and I have a very, special collection of set lists. So I collect, set lists from live shows, and, I have quite a few, and I frame them around the house, and I have a very crown jewel of the Misfits, which is it's a rare find that actually, hangs in my house. So, yeah, I just like to go out and have fun and enjoy life. So
I absolutely adore that. So I am also a pretty huge jazz and blues fan. Actually, funny story, tying it into the Chicago scene.
Yeah.
My wife and I's first date was to a Buddy Guy show.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
He
Yeah,
is
yeah.
absolutely one of my all-time favorites. So it was funny, like I saw that he was coming to town and I just bought tickets and I was like, I'll find someone to go. And then I started talking to my wife and I was like, hey, do you want to go to a Buddy Guy show? And she was like, yeah, I don't know who that is, but let's
I
do
mean,
it. And that was our first date. I love it. Yeah. The other one that I love is baking. So I can't say
Mhm.
that I've been doing it as much as I used to, but I think during COVID, everybody was doing the sourdough stuff.
Yeah, I
That
did get
wasn't
into
my
that.
start,
That wasn't me.
but we did watch a ton of the Great British Baking Show.
Just was watching that the other night.
It's so good, it's so wholesome. Yeah, so now I try, I totally destroy our kitchen trying to, like, make the things that
It's
I see on
so
the
great.
show.
I love the show. I want a handshake from Paul Hollywood, like you would not believe.
Absolutely.
But yes, they need to bring it to the US. I don't know what's going on. Like, we need to figure out how to do, like, the great US baking show with
You
those
just wanna
2.
meet Paul.
And Prue too, and Prue.
Prue is
Yes.
incredible, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
absolutely I love it, so much in common. So, if anybody loves what you had to say today, wants to get in contact, wants to find out more about what you're doing, what's the best way to reach out?
I mean, I would say LinkedIn, right, for
Mhm.
the most part.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Michelle
absolutely.
Tisdale. Yeah.
I love it. Michelle, this was so jam-packed with so much experience and also had, like, a lightness and a levity to it that was incredible.
Oh, thanks.
Very selfishly and personally, this was an extremely enjoyable conversation,
Thank you.
but I also wanna thank you on behalf of the listeners for sharing all of your experience with us. It was so cool, we're so lucky to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my goodness. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Speaking of the audience, I do want to make sure, especially if you've been listening this long, thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please go tell a friend, give us a like or a subscribe, give us a rating, hopefully an extra good rating. If for no other reason than Michelle's excellent fashion sense, hit that 5 star.
Oh, you're great.
Michelle, thanks again. And this has been another episode of the Making Better Decisions podcast. Thanks for listening. That's a wrap for today's episode of Making Better Decisions. For show notes and more, visit makingbetterdecisions.live. A special thank you to our sponsor, Canopy Analytic. Canopy Analytic is a boutique consultancy focused on business intelligence and data engineering. They help companies make better decisions using data. For more information, visit canopyanalytic.com. There's a better way. Let's find it together and make better decisions. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next week. Peace.